solutions.Are. I might have a go at that. Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us. We're going to talk today about some challenges that are affecting the IT industry and also some new innovations to help you address those challenges, in between which we're going to be trying some wines and cheeses. So that's how we're going to start off. Hopefully you will have your boxes and you have not yet been sampling them, but I'm going to hand over to Laura, who is going to take us through the first wine and cheese pairing. Laura, over to you.
Thank you. Hello everyone. My name's Laura and I'll be helping you taste some wine and cheese, as Scott mentioned today. So in your boxes you would have received 3 wines and 3 different cheeses. First of all, we're going to taste the Sauvignon Blanc. So this is a Tierra del Rey Sauvignon. This is a wine from Chile and it is 100% Sauvignon grapes. If you'd like to take that out of your pack, and hopefully you've got it all chilled, we'll start by just pouring a little into your first glass. So firstly, what we're going to do is just give it a little wash around the glass and then have a smell. So just checking what the nose is on this Sauvignon and having a look at the colour and things like that as well. Each of you have got a tasting sheet, so you can take some notes if you would like to, and then if you like it, hopefully you will be able to then purchase again, and I can send you some details on those. But firstly, the appearance is obviously very light, it's chilled, it's a crisp wine, and then on the nose you'll smell citrus flavours, maybe some grapefruit in there as well, and a bit of lime. So first of all then, we're going to just have a little taste. And as you're tasting it, you should taste some apple, melon, lots of green fruits into this. And then you might even get some herbaceous flavours afterwards, so grassy and even nettles. And then on the finish, you've got that crisp, dry wine. That's what you want with a Sauvignon. And for this, we're going to pair it with the Kelly's goat cheese. So Kelly's goat cheese is produced in Kent, actually not very far from where I am at all. And it's a hard goat cheese. So if you take a piece off, you'll notice that it's quite hard, not soft like some goat cheeses you will find. This goat's cheese actually is award-winning. It won gold at the British Cheese Awards. And it's, like I say, a hard cheese. It's quite firm, but very smooth and buttery. So if you smell it, you'll get sort of earthy, nutty flavours. And then a little taste. So you're getting creamy with a bit of peppery flavour on the end. And then if you pair it with the wine being very crisp and the cheese being very creamy, they kind of balance each other out very well. You could also use this cheese in things like a salad or maybe in a pasta sauce, which would be very nice, and it works really well with fish. So if you taste the cheese and the wine together, you'll notice that the wine almost cuts through that creaminess of the cheese, and it just is a really nice balanced serve. Thank you very much, and I hope you've enjoyed that first tasting.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura. If anyone's wondering why I wasn't partaking there, I don't drink, so I will rely on all of you to let me know in the chat how that was. On the subject of which, please do feel free to ask questions through the event. We'll get to some of them during the event, and if we don't, we will pick them up at the Q&A at the end. So please do put your questions in. And let me share my screen. There we go. So thank you for joining us. I am Scott Wright, XMA's Head of Pre-Sales, and I'll be handing over shortly to Shannon Wilson from HPE, who is the Private Cloud Business Manager. Now, the subject of the webinar today is about a variety of challenges that are facing the IT industry, especially in public sector, but I think it's hitting everybody. Costs are, of course, increasing at the moment. The last 18 months in particular have seen rising costs in many areas of IT. Energy costs are going up, which of course hits the data center doubly because of the cost of cooling. A lot of VDI vendors have increased prices, hypervisor costs have gone up, the cost of staff is rising because of the general cost of living increases. And then on top of that, we've had the migration to Windows 11, which has seen a lot of organizations replacing devices that were otherwise perfectly fine. And as well, the business placing a whole variety of new demands on their organization's IT team, things such as AI and ESG goals and more. So we've got a variety of conflicting goals here. IT departments are being asked to cut costs. They're being asked to move services to the cloud. They're being asked to be more responsive to the business's needs and reduce their carbon footprint, all at the same time. It's not hard to see that there are conflicts in these goals. Cutting the number of staff and making staff wear multiple hats does not help the IT team be more responsive. If anything, quite the opposite. Moving to cloud, in particular Azure, is often seen as helping organizations achieve their carbon net neutral goals more quickly. But it typically costs more for static workloads, which of course is the vast majority of workloads for most organizations. There are some paths to carbon savings that are net savings, but upfront investment is needed. So I was working with a customer recently who had 9 dual socket Gen 8 HPE servers, and a single mid-range Gen 12 processor was able to run his entire environment. There are obviously massive savings to replacing 9 servers with 2, as well as the obvious power and cooling. The savings in licensing were going to be substantial as soon as license renewals rolled around. But despite those clear savings that would follow the investment, nonetheless, it was a massive challenge to get even that small investment in order to then be able to realize those savings. It is a decidedly challenging time. And on the subject of that cloud being seen to help achieve net neutral, I am going to go on a slight tangent and have a small rant on that subject. Because Azure is net neutral and has been for some time, many organizations see moving their workloads to Azure as helping them get to net neutral more quickly, which, yes, it does. But what does net neutral really mean in this scenario? Microsoft buy a lot of carbon credits, and there are various games that are played by electricity providers where they might be supplying you with oil or gas powered electricity, but they can buy in hydro or wind electricity, which actually goes to somebody else. And there's a bunch of accounting games that are played there, shall we say. Azure in the UK, of course, runs in London. And I actually couldn't find what the currently consumed percentage of renewables in London is, which makes me think it's not very good. But they have a goal of 15% renewable by 2030, which isn't particularly impressive, shall we say. Here's an interesting alternative in Scotland, where there are a good variety of really high quality data centers. Currently, 97% of the energy consumed in Scotland is renewable, and of that, 90% is wind and hydro. So, which is actually better for your environmental credentials? Moving your workloads into Azure, or moving your equipment into a data center in Scotland, which of course maintains those on-prem economics, or moving your workloads into a managed hosted platform in Scotland, which is still cheaper than the public cloud in many cases. Food for thought there. Net neutral is not always as obvious as it might appear. And of course, the reality behind that net neutral label. How environmentally friendly are you really? So there's a little thought for you. But to get back on topic, difficult times require flexibility. This is essential. Without the power to change, an organization cannot be responsive to these challenges. And as such, demand is up for solutions that allow organizations to be flexible, to keep their options open, and to be ready to change. And we're seeing that in a whole variety of areas. For example, there is a big demand for Nutanix at the moment, very often run on HPE equipment. Because Nutanix allows you to move workloads between your on-prem environment and Azure, AWS, and GCP far more seamlessly than other environments. This is very close now to the hybrid cloud we were promised, where it's an extension of your data center. You can also deploy and manage workloads, cloud native workloads, into Azure, AWS, GCP, etc. within Nutanix, and get proactive guidance on the economics of doing so. It will model your workloads and tell you whether a workload would be better value to you placed on-prem or better value to you placed in Azure. So you not only have the power to flexibly consume both, but also be guided into where will give you the best value and compliance with your organization's goals. That's really interesting. A lot of organizations, of course, jumped into cloud with both feet and then discovered it was quite expensive for some workloads. So that ability to keep your options open and be flexible and prove that you're doing the right thing is very desirable. The Windows 11 refresh, as I mentioned earlier, is forcing a lot of organizations to refresh devices that were otherwise perfectly fit for purpose. So solutions that allow those devices to be kept in service are very interesting. One thing to consider as an alternative to replacing a device that is not Windows 11 compatible is running an alternative operating system on it. That could be Linux, but more typically it's Chrome OS. Turn that device into effectively a Chromebook, or turn it into a thin client if you have a VDI environment. These are both options that let that device have an extended life, as opposed to being artificially forced to replace it early by the requirements of Windows 11. So that's an interesting one for a lot of organizations. Not necessarily a magic one for everybody, but where it fits, very useful. A lot of organizations are examining their backup, and in particular whether archival can play a role in their backup environment. By archiving tasks, projects, old document sets, and so on, you reduce the overhead on your backup environment and make your backups easier to run and potentially reduce the size of your backup targets. But also archival platforms, which typically use tape as their primary or certainly as their lowest tier, offer really great savings in a whole variety of ways. Tape can be extremely cost effective and very, very low energy. A multi-petabyte tape library may draw hundreds of watts rather than thousands. And HPE have what I believe is the most suitable archival tape platform available for the vast majority of businesses, able to scale from a single box to a full rack, which could be over 10 petabytes of storage. Most scalable tape solutions start at a full rack and grow into multiple racks, and that's just too big for most organizations. Whereas something that starts at around 100 terabytes and grows to 10 petabytes if you need to, that covers a lot of organizations, and it does so very, very cost effectively. So that's a really interesting option people are examining in terms of making their backup more cost effective and faster. And of course, we can't fail to mention hypervisors. The current situation, which I'll go into in slightly more detail in just a moment, is demanding, pardon me, is demanding that people look at alternatives to VMware. With the acquisition by Broadcom, many public sector bodies have seen 6 times increases in the hypervisor licensing costs, and that's a lot. It doesn't matter what business you're in, that is a massive increase. And for organizations that are funded by the public purse, there is no real choice there except to examine if there are viable alternatives. Now, Microsoft, of course, are sitting there ready to go in a lot of people's environments. If you are licensed for Windows Server, which I think few organizations would not be, then you are ready to go for Hyper-V. And I see a lot of organizations trialing Hyper-V. They are pulling old equipment out to make a POC cluster and things like this to refresh themselves on where Hyper-V is at as an alternative to VMware. and it's in a pretty credible state. Is it a 100% replacement? I think that would depend who you ask, but it's certainly pretty close. Nutanix AHV has been a popular alternative for people to consider, which of course you can run fully supported in HPE hardware. The interesting benefits to AHV beyond simply being a VMware alternative and the savings that go with that are both the hybrid cloud benefits I mentioned earlier, but also the converged management and management automation is a real boon for organizations that are struggling to get or retain staff or are being challenged on headcount. Red Hat, I think, missed the boat a little bit. Until late last year, Red Hat Hypervisor was not available separately. You could only buy it as part of the Redshift containerization platform, which is a great product. But if you weren't looking for a containerization platform, if you were just looking for an alternative to VMware, to vSphere specifically, it was almost the same price and brought you a lot of added functionality that you weren't looking for. They did respond late last year by making Red Hat virtualization available separately, but I think they lost an opportunity to gain a lot of momentum last year when things were happening. However, none of these are new options. Many of them are quite old options, but something which doesn't happen very often has happened if you weren't aware, and that is a new hypervisor has been brought to market, in this case by HPE. So we're going to go into the second wine and cheese in a moment, and then Shannon from HPE is going to let us get a closer look at VM Essentials. And with that, I'll stop sharing and hand over to Laura again.
Hello everyone again. So our second wine for today will be the Zinfandel Rosé from Wildwood. So just looking at the bottle, you can see that this is quite a deep colour rosé. Usually with rosé, the deeper in colour means the sweeter it's going to be, and then the lighter is more of a dry rosé. This is actually picking its colour up from its kind of brief interaction that it will get with the Zinfandel grape when it's being pressed. And we're going to pour it first of all, and then just again have a little smell. Wash it around your glass. And then with this on the nose, you can smell strawberry, lots of red fruit. It's a very sweet rosé, so you will get sort of like candy flavours as well. And actually, it's probably one of the you smell what you taste with this one, whereas some of them you can get a different nose to the taste. So just have a little taste now. So it's quite a light wine. It's fruity, you've got those subtle citrus flavours as well, which you do get with most wines. And it's quite clean, fresh, but you're really getting that aftertaste of the berries. And this we're going to pair with the Ashmore cheddar. So this is kind of your typical farmhouse cheddar. It's quite tangy, it's crumbly, it's a harder cheese, and it's produced by Canterbury cheesemakers, so down in Kent again. But if you just cut a little piece of this off, you'll taste that sort of bitterness and sharpness that you would get with a really sort of well-matured cheddar. And then if you pair it back with the rosé, you can really taste those differences. So that's why it works really well with this wine, because you've got the tanginess of the cheese and then the soft and sweetness of the rosé. It's your perfect sandwich cheese, this one. It works great in a ploughman's. Also works really nice with fish, because it's, again, you get that subtle flavour with fish and then a really strong taste with this cheddar. And then if there's any questions on any of these wines or cheeses, please add them into the question box and I can talk you through them at the end. This cheese also, just to note, is because it's quite well matured. So 4 to 6 months, that's what you're looking at when it's a well matured cheese. It's matured in a muslin, and then also pressed in that as well, and that just reduces any excess whey that's in the cheese, and that's what gives it that kind of crumbly effect. So it's quite a dry cheese. Thank you. I hope the next bit goes well.
Thank you, Laura. Thanks for sharing. Hi, everybody. So as Scott mentioned, I will be joining from HPE. So I am our private cloud business manager here. So I'll be taking you through an overview of VM Essentials software that we've recently launched. So I'm just going to put my slides into presentation mode there. Hopefully everybody is enjoying the wine and cheese so far. I thought I'd better miss out, or I might not get through my my slides if I was taking part there. So any questions, as always, please do just put them in the chat as we'll move to a Q&A section following my slides as well. So obviously, times have changed in the virtualization market, and I know Scott touched on this during his section around, typically around a 6 times cost increase for a number of customers. Typically, what we're seeing at HPE is anywhere between 2 to 4 times, but in some scenarios, some customers are experiencing 15 times or more, and that's all dependent on the bundle that they're utilizing with VMware as well. So if you've an existing VMware user and you're coming up for your renewal, you might have already experienced some of the changes that have happened in the market as well. So they are moving to a bundled only approach as well. So you can no longer add on, additional services and feature functionality. It's what's included within each bundle here. So there's multiple options. They did reintroduce the Enterprise Plus license late last year, so that is now available for customers. But of course, there was the removal of the perpetual licenses. Customers now also need to buy a minimum of 16 cores, regardless of how many cores you may have in your processor. So a lot of customers, particularly in our public sector space and SMB customers as well, who might not need overly powerful compute servers, are now going to be kind of penalized from Broadcom and have to pay for more than what they do require. So it's been a difficult change for a lot of customers, and obviously that brings us to alternative options. And I know Scott spoke through some of the other offerings, so I'm here today to talk to you all around what HPE have brought to market as well. So obviously, post of the changes, so at HPE we host our biannual, because we do 2 a year, customer conferences called HPE Discover. So this typically takes place in Las Vegas in June, so we're coming up for that next month, and then also in November in Europe as well. So this year it was in Barcelona last year and again this year as well. So in June last year, we announced that we would enter the virtualization market given the challenges that had occurred from the Broadcom acquisition of VMware. So we initially announced that this was going to be embedded within our private cloud solutions, so our HCI offerings for customers, as that is obviously where a lot of the bigger impact has been if they have been using a HCI solution based off of VMware, such as HPE SimpliVity, HPE DHCI, or even vSAN based nodes as well. So, really big impact for customers there too. Now, we got some feedback from our Discover event in June that, whilst it's really great that, HPE are bringing an offer into market for the private cloud, but customers would also really like to have this level of flexibility for being able to use it as a standalone software. So with servers and storage independent of one another and not in just a HCI solution. So in November, as I said, at our Discover conference in Barcelona, we announced that we would extend the capabilities of our hypervisor. So we named it HPE VM Essentials, and from the virtualization piece, and it's built on KVM software. Now, the reason that we were able to extend these capabilities so quickly is because we acquired a company called Morpheus Data. So if you're not familiar with Morpheus Data, Morpheus is a cloud management platform which enables management across every type of infrastructure, so from your bare metal to your virtualization, across your multi-cloud containers, absolutely everything, so that there's a single interface for customers who span multiple different environments as well. So the reason that, like I say, we were able to extend the capability so quickly from what we were building as from the ground up embedded was that Morpheus themselves had built their own hypervisor based on KVM, and they'd been using it as an internal hypervisor solution for over 4 years. So instead of creating our own from scratch, where it can take a little bit of time to really get a good level of feature parity, we took what Morpheus had created and embedded it into our solutions as well. So we do have the capability to offer a level of choice for customers as well, with how they want to consume their hypervisor. And on there as well, we will support levels of third-party integration hardware as well. So we'll see the first wave of third-party hardware be supported in the coming months. So it's HPE's Q3 start today. So that runs from the 1st of May until the end of July, and we're set to see the first third-party hardware releases come in this next quarter as well. So we'll extend out the capabilities from our own hardware too. So what actually is the hypervisor as well? So what is VM Essentials? So ultimately, what we want to do is help customers reduce costs. So this is a per CPU license as well. So we've moved away from the, I'd say, probably controversial per core based licensing, which a number of customers have feel disgruntled around because of the increase in cost, particularly any customers that may have taken advantage of high core counts with AMD processors, for example, as well. So we want to have it as a fully integrated solution, so with capabilities across local support, NFS, iSCSI, fiber channels, Ceph as well within there. So really easy for customers to start using this as well. But one of the really beneficial elements of the VM Essentials hypervisor is that we can simplify management across both your existing VMware environment and your new VME environment. So obviously we know changing hypervisor is a long-term process. It's not something that you can just do overnight. There needs to be a level of testing for your specific workloads and applications. And then you also need, to do a migration process, which, depending on the size of your environment, can take, a relatively long time as well. So what we can do with the VM Essentials hypervisor is it has a on-premise console. So similar to the vCenter experience, we've got an on-premise console where you will do all of your virtual machine management from within there. And you can brownfield in your existing VMware clusters to do your management from one single interface as well. So any changes that you make within the VME console to your existing VMware vSphere cluster will automatically be reflected within your vCenter as well. So really seamless for customers. And we do also have an embedded migration image conversion from VMware to KVM into the VME console as well. So that really can help, when you're managing both your environments and starting to migrate across, you've got a one seamless view across all of your environments there. Now, of course, some customers, have, and I know Scott was speaking about it before around, having the ability to have a hybrid approach and simplification there as well. So if you are looking for, that level of integration, you can utilize the full Morpheus platform capabilities as well. So you can, brownfield in, connect in your existing cloud capabilities, and then also around, any containers, bare metal capabilities as well, and have a single view. And there's a really seamless upgrade path as well. So it does use the same console. So what you can do is just insert a license key, and it will do it, it will unlock all those additional features. So once you have done a migration to VM Essentials, when you start to, extend capabilities as and when needed, there's no, another huge lift and shift migration as well. So really, really seamless there. And then, of course, we as HPE, we work with, a number of technology partners and our ISVs very, very closely to work on, co-engineered solutions as well. So we are, we've got our enterprise grade support, so our 24/7, all included with the VM Essentials software as well. And then we're working with, our third party ISVs such as Veeam, Commvault, Cohesity, Microsoft, all of the others to, validate across their portfolio as well to ensure that, it's a really smooth transition to our hypervisor as well. So this slide, just extends on a number of those capabilities that I spoke about there. But as it's based on KVM, Ubuntu from a standalone perspective is a prerequisite today. So, you can install the Ubuntu and then deploy the VME ISO image as well. So you can then, begin using the VME hypervisor from there. Our integrated installer is going to be available very shortly when we have our private cloud business edition launch next month. So I'll come on to that on my next slide. But in the bottom right hand corner is a screenshot of what the on-premise console looks like there. So you've got a really nice dashboard overview as well, and you can, create all of your different clusters from within there and have that seamless single pane of glass management as well. So as I mentioned, this is going to be available as a standalone offering, so your traditional free tier, and then also embedded with our private cloud solutions. So if you aren't familiar with HPE's, I will shorten it to PCBE. There's a little bit of a mouthful. This is a disaggregated hyperconverged solution. We've had this in the market for a number of years now. We brought it to market in 2019, and prior to the release of our VM Essentials software, it has always been embedded with VMware, and customers really get the simplicity of a HCI appliance, but with the scalability and flexibility of a traditional free tier as well. So, if you do need to add any more compute processing power, you can just add an additional server node into your stack as well. And then from a storage perspective as well, with our latest Electra Storage MP offering, traditionally when you scale storage, you need to add an expansion shelf, but with the Electra Storage B10000 solution, you can scale by 2 drive increments if you do have spare drive bays as well. So it really helps, particularly around that licensing cost. So as I mentioned, this is also available with VMware, but as of Monday, this will be orderable with our HCI solution, PCBE as well. So what does that look like from a a visual perspective of how your stack setup would look as well? So you've got, obviously at the top, we've got our HP Greenlake platform, which does all of your lifecycle management and setup of the infrastructure up there. And then underneath, of course, you've got your on-premise hardware. So you would have your HPE server nodes there with the deployment of VM Essentials virtual machine on top. And then this purple one here is our data services connect to VM. So that just enables the connection between the storage and also talking to the GreenLake platform as well for your management. As I mentioned, the VM Essentials Manager is an on-premise console. So all of your VM Essentials virtual machines will be managed through there. And then underneath, you've got the storage array. As I mentioned shortly, in the next 3 months, we'll see the first release of third-party hardware as well. But of course, this is just based on our technology as well. And how that would look from, having a mixed environment with your existing vSphere cluster is that you would have your VM Essentials cluster, and then you'd also have your vSphere cluster. So they would run on separate nodes. Now, obviously, we've still got the PCB console up here for all of that management. But if you do just remove that and we go underneath the dotted line here, this would be your traditional kind of free tier setup as well. You just remove the ability of the management and you would manage of the PCB management, sorry, and then you would just manage your servers and storage separately as a traditional free tier as well. So the view would be the same as well here. So you can see the arrow integration here showcasing that the vCenter can be connected into VME. And then over time as well, if you do start to, start small with your VM Essentials cluster while you, start with your test and dev workloads first, for example, you can then, start to migrate one of your vSphere nodes over to the VME cluster. And then what you can also do is then you can decommission these nodes so you can protect your investment into the hardware as well, and then redeploy in your VM Essentials cluster as well as you begin to do a larger migration. And what's really great here as well is that you can use the same storage as well for both of your vSphere and VM Essentials cluster as well. So you don't need to, make an investment into, a full free tier solution. You can just start with your servers, utilize your existing storage that you use with your vSphere cluster today as well. So really, really seamless management across the two environments. As we understand, there are some workloads for customers that will always need to remain with VMware. So we will always continue to support VMware hypervisor as well. Just here from a quick overview of the comparison between VMware vSphere and the VM Essentials hypervisor as well. So we've got some really good core functionality already included. So as I mentioned, this came from the Morpheus acquisition. It's already on its version 8.0.5. So we did the 8.0.5 release Monday this week. So, we're doing a release typically once a month to try and close some of these gaps. As Morpheus created it for their own internal use, it wasn't initially for a market offering. So there are still, a few gaps that we are looking at closing, but the affinity and the anti-affinity policies are going to be available in either the next release or the one after. The GPU pass-through support, I should have updated my slide earlier, but this is already available as of Monday's release as well. So we're really working on, closing some of these key gaps from a hypervisor perspective as well. As mentioned, we've got live migration, high availability, DRS capabilities as well, and integrated snapshots and backup as well from the VME console. We do already have agent-based Veeam and Cohesity to support, and in either 8.06 or 8.07 we will have full Convol integration as well. So we're working really closely with all of our ISVs to then move kind of close some of these gaps and really have a full end-to-end capability for customers as well. So as I mentioned, we are based on per CBU pricing. So compared to some other solutions that are based per core, there's starting minimum of kind of a 16 core, and then going up dependent with VM Essentials is flat pricing as well. Now within the SKU, there's a 1 year, a 3 year, and a 5 year option as well, and the SKU is inclusive of the your VME console, your support, including the Ubuntu support as well. So everything is all included within the license as well. So you just require one CPU, one license per CPU as well. Now, of course, we understand there may be a little bit of hesitation. There's, it's something that you've not utilized before. So we do have a free 60-day trial for customers to utilize as well. So that's up to 6 sockets as well. Now, you can do this as nested virtualization as well. So you can deploy it on your existing infrastructure to give it a to trial it out as well. So you can just spin up an Ubuntu based virtual machine. So it runs on the 22.04 version, and then you can deploy the VME image in there as well. If you are familiar with our cloud physics offering, so this is a free of charge assessment that will look into all of your your infrastructure, everything that's connected to the network, to give you an insight into what the what's going on with the hardware. Are they end of support from that vendor as well? What ESXi versions are you running as well? And it can deploy in 5 minutes and start gaining insights. Now, of course, it only collects metadata for us to be able, to showcase some of the insights in there. So there's also capabilities to look at what would your workloads that you have today, what would they cost in the cloud providers. So we've got the capabilities to do the workload sizing within AWS, Azure, all of the cloud providers as well, and what would it cost on premise. It looks at the overall TCO as well there. So it's a really intuitive tool. If you do want to have a look into this as well, we're working very closely with XMA to be able to deploy this to customers. So just a couple of stats there around cloud physics. So we've assessed over 8,000 environments as well, and 40% of environments, have less than 75% usage. There's a lot of over provisioning. And underutilization within a lot of the virtual machines as well. So it can give you a nice overview of everything in your environment as well. As you can see in this middle section here, we do look at right sizing as well. So it will let you know if you can consolidate down any of your virtual CPUs or your VRAM, and that in turn can help you reduce down the number of physical hosts that you have on site as well, to help reduce any licensing costs as well that might be needed there. My last slide is just around, we've just launched a new analytic within our cloud physics assessment tool. So it's a host license simulator, and I know it's probably a little bit small on the screen, but what you can do is you can have a look into all the different options here. Now, this is a partner only and a HPE only view, because it does include, as you can see, costs there. But working with XMA, and if you do have a HPE account team as well, we can actually walk you through this simulator and show you the outcome, so you can see the costs associated with different licensing models. So in this environment is obviously really large. There's over 20,000 virtual machines here, and it will show you exactly what it would cost as configured for a VMware renewal. And then underneath, you can look at how you can consolidate that down and what the savings would be moving to HPE VM Essentials as well. So that is my last slide. I believe we're going to move into a Q&A as well. So I will stop sharing there. Have we got any questions, Scott?
Right, thank you, Shannon. That was really interesting. I knew that support for DHCI was coming. It was Monday, so we are getting some breaking news.
You are indeed an
Also, I'll
exclusive.
just add to one of Shannon's comments there about right sizing in order to consolidate the number of servers. Your servers are not equally efficient at all levels of utilization. And although HPE servers are exceptionally efficient when running at low levels of utilization compared to many competitors, nonetheless, you will get the best amount of compute per power consumed for a server that is 70 to 90% utilized. So going to a smaller number of servers not only has the obvious benefit of you have less, but you actually get more bang for your buck in terms of compute per electricity as well. So it is more environmentally friendly to do so also. So we do have a few questions from different sources. I'll go with the questions for Shannon first. So you mentioned there's a trial for VME. Is that straightforward to deploy? Is it difficult? How much effort's involved there?
Yeah, so obviously, as it does use a different underlying operating system to VMware, like I say, you do need to deploy Ubuntu 22.04. So once you've deployed that, you just need to deploy the VME image as well, and then it should be relatively streamlined to install. We have got on the web page that I shared, and I'm sure the XMA team will share it with in the follow-up as well. There's a kind of step-by-step guide that will walk you through exactly how to download the VM Essentials manager, and then also your kind of first task, so how to provision a virtual machine as well. So lots of different capabilities that it will walk you through.
Fantastic. So you mentioned Ubuntu there. How does the support for that work? Is HPE providing the support for the Ubuntu element and the VME element?
Yeah, so obviously as Ubuntu is an open source software offering, some customers may want to have a level of support. Now, there are providers such as Canonical that will provide Ubuntu support, but due to obviously, the level of support engineers that we have at HPE, we will support up to level 3. But even though I do say up to level 3, we do have an agreement with Canonical that if there is an issue that our HPE support engineers can't resolve, they will work with HPE to do that. So customers absolutely don't need to go and get support externally. We will manage that end to end for customers as well.
Fantastic. Is VM Essentials locked to HPE hardware?
So at this time, like I say, we're very close to having the first wave of third-party hardware, and it would be interesting if any of our customers on the call want to share if there's a particular vendor or model that they would like to have VM Essentials support for. So there are a few coming from some of the main providers, main alternatives to HPE as well. So around Dell, Pure, and NetApp all coming in the first release as well. So on the trial website as well, we have a compatibility matrix which shows all of the ISV and vendor validations that we have done already. So that is updated every single release we do each month. So all of the HP validated hardware is on there now, and then the addition of the third party will come. So like I say, we're only a couple of months out from having the first third party hardware. We're saying, of course, it will, as it's based on KVM, any hardware that does support, the KVM images as well, and the will probably work, but obviously we wouldn't want any customers to encounter any issues by using that for anything other than test and dev until we've done the validations as well.
Interesting, thank you. You mentioned Veeam and Cohesity and Commvault.
Yes.
Are there any other third parties looking to support VME that you're allowed to name drop for us?
I can. So, we're looking at, a number of different workloads and applications. So we have already got a whole host already being validated. So, things like SQL, SAP, Omnissa, formerly Horizon as well from a VDI perspective. Now, I would say, we're not fully there on the full validations. We've done initial testing, and we will continue to develop those. But we do want, to have a level of that integration as well for customers to be able to start looking at this as well. From another, I'm just trying to think of some more. So we have got Milestone, which is a video surveillance that is also coming on our roadmap very, very shortly as well. But yeah, all of the Windows Server and everything else is already validated because that's available via the Morpheus platform as well. So operating systems, we pretty much support anything kind of Linux based, VMware based, with sorry, go for it, Debian as well, Oracle, all of those too.
Awesome. A lot of people are probably going to try VME on a part of their environment and keep some VMware or some Hyper-V on the other. What's the customer experience going to be like when they've got these two separate hypervisors in their environment?
Yeah, so obviously, if you've been a VMware user for a long time, you're very familiar with, the management within vCenter as well. So, using VM Essentials is a completely different experience. And from what I've heard from customer feedback so far, so from those trials globally, we've already had 1,500 downloads, which is really great, and we've received some really good feedback. And the feedback around the usability and the differences between the VMware is that it's actually, people have said it's actually easier to deploy and start creating virtual machines and the management as well. So it has been really positive. And then having the integration of the VMware in there, it's the exact same setup as well for your VMware as it is for VME. So super easy to deploy. It just automatically connects into your vCenter. So we've had some really positive responses from customers. We've done many betas before we brought this to market, and the feedback for us is obviously really important because that's helping us shape the roadmap as well.
So really easy to just give it a try then.
I would say so. Yeah, there's lots of resources out there, lots of videos as well, and of course, we didn't have time for a demo today, but if customers on the call are interested, reach out to your XMA account manager, and we can look to set up a a more enhanced demo as well.
Fantastic. And there's one for me here. Someone's asked, what is the difference between backup and archival? So the short version of that is, when you do a backup of something, you take a copy of it from your primary storage, and you put that copy into your backup environment, usually in two places. Whereas with an archival, typically you will remove it from your primary environment and move it into your archival platform, usually in two or more places. So you are, as part of that archival process, reducing the load on your primary storage, and also therefore reducing the load on your backup environment, because that old project doesn't need to be backed up every day for however many years it's going to be there that you have to keep it for. If it's done, if it's not going to change. So by archiving it, you can accelerate your backups, free up space on your primary storage, which may well mean that you can delay an upgrade, for example, or an expansion. But at the same time, if users need that project back, they can request that is restored, an administrator approves it, and the system will return that project back onto their primary. And that could be a project, it could be a case if we're talking about forensics. But lots of organizations have data that they know is done with and used, but they need to keep. And archival is a much more efficient way of doing that. And there are substantial cost savings and power savings to moving this old data that you still need to retain and have access to onto an archival platform rather than a backup platform. So that's the short version. Let me check if there's any more. I think we are good. So we're going to go into the last wine and cheese pairing, and then Laura will be available if there are any questions from you about the wine and cheese. So we'll go into a wine and cheese Q&A after this. So Laura, over to you.
Hi there again. Thank you again. So our last wine today is it's a lovely Merlot from Bear and Star. This is a Californian brand. However, the wine is actually from Chile. So there's two different grapes in this, whereas the other two wines were both whole grape wines. So this has got 85% Merlot and then 15% Cabernet. It's a real sort of medium-bodied wine. It's not super high in tannin, so it's not. It's only 11% alcohol-wise, whereas it's if you had something which was aged more, you might get a higher percentage of alcohol. So we're going to just open it up and pour a little bit into our glass. So colour-wise, you've got like a really ruby red wine. It's not too heavy. It's quite a light wine. And then if you have a little smell for a start, you'll get sort of flavours of like damsonberry and cherry. And then you might even pick up chocolate and even a bit of vanilla in there. So give it a little whiz around your glass and then take a little taste. And then on the taste, that's where you're going to start to get more spicy flavours. So you might pick up some nutmeg in there. You can also get just sort of a little note of chocolate as well. And we're going to pair this with our King Cot Dairy Blue. This is probably my favourite cheese out of all of the three. It's a really mild blue cheese, so it's only aged for 4 to 6 weeks. So they call it a baby blue actually, rather than a full-on blue cheese. But if you just take a little piece of that, obviously it's a wetter cheese than the other two, and it's a little bit more crumbly, and it crumbles mainly because of the vein in the cheese, which does make it perfect for things like salads, also for melting down into sauces like that you would have on red meat. Also works very nicely in a mushroom risotto. So it's a lot softer than a usual blue cheese. It's quite mild, and then as it progresses in your mouth, you'll start to get that real blue cheese flavours. It's just not quite so pungent as some of the cheeses, and actually to smell as well, it's not got that real blue cheese, stinky cheese sort of smell to it. It's just that real softness. So pairing them both together, what works well with this is obviously you've got the fruity flavours, so dark fruit flavours of wine, and then the nice mild but then stronger flavours of cheese as it sort of progresses in your mouth. So I'm just going to give a little recap of all three of the wines that we've had today. First being our Sauvignon. So crisp, you've got sort of citrusy flavours going on, and then we paired that with a really nice creamy goat's cheese. Then we moved on to our really fruity rosé, quite sweet, and paired that with a sharper cheddar. So you're getting a real contrast in flavours. And then we finished on our Merlot and then paired that with our blue cheese. All three of these cheeses are artisan. They're produced in Kent, relatively small batch, and you can only usually get them from local farm shops or online. But they all work really nicely on a cheese board, whereas some cheeses you'll get which may melt quicker or they'll be too soft, whereas these are all hold form really nicely and work lovely on a cheese board. And all the wines that we've used today are quite accessible, so they're nothing too obscure. They are all readily available either in supermarkets or online, and there's a lot of other wines very similar to them which would work well with this selection of cheeses. And then if you've got any questions regarding what we've tasted today, I'd love to hear them, and then I can try and answer them for you.
Thanks, Laura. So you said which your favourite cheese was. What was your favourite wine?
My favourite's the blue cheese.
Yeah, but what was the favourite wine?
Oh, favourite wine.
You didn't tell us that.
I really like the Sauvignon. I really like a crisp, drier flavour wine. I also like dry rosés. However, this particular Sauvignon is really nice. I like the citrusy flavours that you get through with it. And actually, this does really work well with the blue cheese as well. So you can mix and match them a bit, but this is just how I would pair them. You know, they're perfect pairing, shall we say. But it does really work with the blue cheese because it's quite a crisp wine, and actually the initial softness of this blue works really nicely with it.
Well, that takes us really nicely into our next question. If somebody wants to make their own wine and cheese pairing, what qualities of the wine and cheese should they be looking for to make them match?
So I'd look for something which has a nice contrast, because then you're balancing out your palate. What you wouldn't want is to have something like a Sauvignon paired with this cheddar. It would be very acidic, and actually you would then lose the flavour of the wine against the flavour of the cheese. So you want to try and have opposites, which then makes a nice balanced palate for you.
Oh, thank you. Let me check to see if there are any more last minute ones. If anyone's got any questions, this is the time. Please put them in. It looks like not.
No problem.
So, in that case, Laura, thank you for taking us through the wines and cheese. Shannon, thank you for talking to us about HPE VM Essentials, and I hope everyone agrees that a new hypervisor is a pretty exciting time. And of course, thank all of you for taking the time out to come and listen to us. I hope you've all been enjoying the wine and cheese, and I hope we've provided something interesting for you to think about.
Thank you, Scott,
Thank
for having
you.
us. Thank you.
And with that, we will end the event. Thank you all. Have a good evening.